economic development strategy?
It'll have a big impact on London's economy. Where we are now is, I'm afraid, we're none the wiser what will be the outcome of what's happening with Brexit. There are a number of scenarios, some of it is more. One scenario is Parliament votes to accept the deal negotiated by the Prime Minister. The other scenario is that deal is rejected. If that's the case, there are 4 separate scenarios at least. 1 is no deal. 2 is general election. 3 is a public vote with the option of staying in the European Union. Or 4 is an amended deal. If it is the case that Parliament accepts the deal negotiated by the Prime Minister, essentially it's a blindfold agreement. And what we've done is kick the can down the road, potentially till December 2020, with the option of an extension, a one-off extension. So during the transitional period, we'll still have access and be members of the single market and customs union. But all we've done is delayed the discussion about future arrangements. In the meantime, massive uncertainty to our businesses. In the meantime, huge challenges in relation to getting talent to our country, and a real challenge in relation to investment. So all the scenarios are not great, save for the one where there is a public vote, where the British public decide to stay in the European Union.
Yesterday, the Chancellor admitted that leaving the EU under any Brexit scenario will make the UK poorer. GDP would be 7.6% lower than if the UK had stayed in, equivalent to around £150 billion. And Treasury analysis of Mrs May's deal states it will leave the size of the UK economy up to 3.9% smaller after 15 years, compared with staying in the EU, and a no-deal Brexit could deliver a 9.3% hit. Mr Hammond claimed it was not just about the economy, which I think is a rather bizarre statement for a Chancellor, you might think, and that the Prime Minister's deal would deliver political benefits. How many Londoners do you think voted to become poorer? And can you see any political benefits whatsoever for London from the government scheme?
Well, it just beggars belief that the Chancellor of the Exchequer is now talking about political benefits being the sole benefit of us leaving the European Union, when he's seen the figures, which shows the massive cost to our economy. And I'd remind colleagues in the Assembly that if there are fewer taxes being raised, then it limits our ability to provide better public services at a time where our city's population is growing. You'll remember us when we were dismal this time last year. I commissioned an independent organisation, Cambridge Econometrics, to go away and do a piece of work in the various scenarios of us leaving the European Union. One scenario, us staying members of the single market, customs union, long transition, to the worst scenario, in their opinion, us leaving the EU without any deal whatsoever. And even in their best scenario, our economy wouldn't grow as much as we would if we stayed in the European Union. A year later, the Bank of England and the Chancellor have done their own estimates and their own analysis, and it confirms what we've said. And I agree with you. I don't think many people who vote to leave the EU voted to make themselves poorer, to make it more difficult for their children and grandchildren, or to damage the NHS or our safety.
Your strategy in the leak commit around £295 million from the European Social Fund towards skills, employment, enterprise and youth programmes in London. If London doesn't get our fair share from the government's UK Shared Prosperity Fund after losing the European Regional Development Fund and the European Social Fund, what do you think the impact on London's labour market will be in the event of either a no-deal Brexit or the Prime Minister's flawed deal, bearing in mind we already have a problem filling vacancies in essential services like the NHS and care homes, and we see so many shops, cafes and restaurants with vacancy signs in their windows?
It would be severely damaging. I mean, you will know from your expertise that actually one of the schemes funded by monies from the European structural investment funds is helping those in long-term unemployment get into work. It's been a huge source of benefit to those families who've been long-term unemployed. The worry is, unless we get a fair share of the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, we would not be able to do some of the things that we do currently. The idea that we take back control from Brussels, but it goes to Whitehall rather than coming back to London or the regions is one that nobody voted for as well. And I think it's really important for us to realise that if it is the case that the government pursues an immigration policy that only gives advantage to Tier 2, those earning above £30,000, then every industry in London, from the NHS, social care, hotels, restaurants, construction, tech, will suffer as a consequence.
And doesn't all this reinforce the argument for a people's vote on Brexit? this time hopefully with a properly informed debate without lies and foreign interference from either Russia or the USA.
Well, the huge advantage this time compared to last time is last time those who were campaigning to leave the European Union were able to promise the land of milk and honey if we left the European Union. Now we've seen the outcome of negotiations with the European Union. So, for example, those who promised in 2016 that we could leave the European Union and have access to the single market have been proven to be wrong. Those that argued in 2016 that negotiating a trade deal with the EU could be done in an afternoon have been proved to be wrong. And so now the British public can have a choice in relation to the deal negotiated by our Prime Minister, in her words, the best she could do or anybody could do, with the option of those circumstances staying in the European Union.
Thank you.